It was, if memory serves, it was less than $10,000. And Dick was also talking about trying to do some fundraising to help support the cost.
That was 4,500, isn't it?
Yeah, we believe that there was some fundraising and whatnot that they'd be able to do, but it really wasn't a lot of money. So we would like to, with your permission, of course, work this into the budget, to have it come out of Patriotic Services sometime after July 1 of next year.
Now, the names that are up on the current memorial, they're not everyone who's served? Is that all?
Yes, from Peterborough, yeah.
Yeah, they're all people who served, not necessarily died in battle.
Right, all served,
Okay.
yes.
So it makes sense to include all these names. Where exactly would the memorial be placed? On that same wall?
No, it would be, Dick and I were thinking it would be, if you're facing that whole area, it would be on the left-hand side along the pillar there that's...
Yeah, it's right by the gate.
Yeah, it's by
essentially.
the gate, and we would have it along there, so it would still be out front.
I think would be a good thing.
Yeah, what do we just need a motion?
Yep.
Sounds like we had a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, wow, great work. I mean, that's,
It's a lot of work to
it is,
serve
thank you.
Mm.
Long time coming.
Yeah.
And this is new business.
Yeah, wait till you see what we got in store for.
Yeah, we should have put it under old business. Good catch. All right, we'll keep the good news coming. We're going to accept some donations for the purpose of contracting with Pale Blue Dot, right?
Yes.
Who will be presenting? Well,
I can say a few words about Pale Blue Dot. I'm Bob Herringsmith, co-coordinator of the Peterborough Renewable Energy Planning Team. Pale Blue Dot came to our attention while we were doing research on other towns' plans. They did a great plan, actually a climate action plan, so a little bit different from what we're doing, for Hartford, Vermont, which is a small town in Vermont. And we talked to them, we had some questions about the Hartford plan, and we also asked if they could help us at all. And in fact, they provided us 40 hours of their time pro bono over the spring and early summer to help us think about how we should be organizing the plan and so forth. And what we eventually decided was that they could really be helpful to us in writing the plan and in handling some of the data requirements for the plan, because they've done probably 100 plans of this basic type. They are familiar with a lot of the data sources that talk about renewable energy potential in different parts of the country. They can draw on that and their experience, and also produce a very compelling looking document. So we are asking that the town sign a contract with Pale Blue Dot to write the plan at this point. The amount of the contract is $9,000, and we have committed donors willing to chip in that amount of money to pay for the contract.
this is a one contract, one deal done when it's done.
Yes. Yeah, there are no additional expenses, no travel or anything. It's a flat $9,000, which they'll bill as progress is made on the plan, on writing the plan.
And this, of course, is furthering the town's wish through town meeting to become fossil fuel independent by what was the date? 30.
2030 for electricity and 2050 for heating and transportation, basically everything other than electricity.
So wishes and anybody that may have a concern about it costing them, again, here we have volunteers that are putting their time in to gather all this information, and then also donating money towards a contract for a plan. It's a benefit to all of us, right? I really appreciate that.
It's a deal we hope you can't refuse.
Well, I'm ready to go to the motion. If there's any questions or comments, anybody?
Now, having been immersed in prep, perhaps even deeper than I expected or hoped, but in any case, this is, the plan, of course, is the prep team has put together an outline of all the various ways in which we can achieve the goals that we've set. and they're going to develop a formal document that would be presentable to the public and codify what we're trying to accomplish, so.
Any questions? I'd make that motion to accept the donation for that particular contract with Penn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And also, since we're at it, we reviewed the contract, see no issues with it whatsoever. John said, yep, and that was pretty simple. So if you would like to authorize me to sign on behalf of the town, we can get this in there.
John Rowling and our town attorney.
Yes.
Yes.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Great,
Thank you.
thanks, Nicole.
Thank you very much.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, blame him, it's okay.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter which order you put them.
Yeah, thanks for the work, Bob, and everyone on that group, on the team. Much appreciated. Contoocook Housing Trust application. This is interesting to read the figures on how many affordable or workforce housing units are in town. Someone here to present? Hi.
Hi. I'm Trish Bell. I'm on the board for the Housing Trust. I didn't submit the application. Our executive director did, but she couldn't be here tonight, so I got the last minute. And this is Ron Mack. He's also on the board with us. I know we have 4 properties. I don't remember the number of units in Peterborough, but with skyrocketing property values, our taxes are becoming a little bit of an extra burden to try to maintain the low-income rents. But we try to, we aim for 80% of market value, and we offer a good service, and we have not had a vacancy in a while. We've been trying to acquire new properties, but we're a little priced out of the market. So we were just looking to see if we could come up with a way to flatten our costs a little bit. We want to pay our taxes, be good neighbors, but as everybody knows, everybody's prices are just going up and up and up.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think it's 29 apartments, is that what I have my quick math, or I did read it somewhere?
Between all 4 buildings.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's 12-unit building, a 6-unit building, 8-unit building, and a 3-unit building.
Great. Well, I mean, for all the talk we've done about what we can't do for affordable housing in town, I think it would only behoove us to put our money where our mouth is and anybody against that?
Well, there are some mitigating issues. Maybe Nicole, you want to?
Sure, and talk a little bit about that. One of the things that we have is a checklist that the state provides that you have to go down to establish a charitable organization. And as we're going through that, certainly they're a nonprofit, there's no question about that, they're a not-for-profit organization. And their mission meets the goals and guidelines set out by the state for housing, which is what we're talking about here. But Ellie can speak to this more if you have any particular questions about it, but there are certain guidelines the state presents for housing when it's being looked at for a pilot agreement. And one of those issues is seeing that it consistently is being put to that highest use, that it's being put to that charitable mission, which in this case is serving a low-income population or a workforce population. Now, we can certainly say that that is the case with the Pine Street apartments. Those are being administered within a HUD program. Everyone who lives there has their income certified every single year. And the finances for that particular building are being audited, and we received all those documents from Alice Altman, their executive director. We're not able to say that for an absolute certainty with the other buildings, because the other buildings, while people are being income qualified when they move in, they are not being recertified on an annual basis. And so it is entirely possible that after someone moves in, their income may actually be above the 80% of average median income. So that does make it a little bit more challenging. And so if you read through the memo, the cover memo, Ally and I, after reviewing all of this, believe that there is absolutely no question that the Pine Street apartments qualify for a pilot and should be granted a pilot, but we are less certain about the balance of the buildings. And one of the other things, and I guess this is really more a question for the executive board, but why have they only approached Peterborough and not the other communities where they own apartment buildings for a pilot?
Because it's a lot of work, and we wanted to start with the biggest town, and see where we got, because there was a lot of work to put this together. And we have Pine Street's the only one that we acquired through the HUD program, and that's why we have that oversight. But is there something that if we just institute voluntarily an annual recertification? I don't know, maybe that's,
Well, you
there's a
could-
reason we don't do that, I don't know.
Right. I'm not sure, you
Yeah.
know, I mean, that's really up to the board.
Does it have to be certified by the state for you to be okay with it, or is it something that we would have to institute as a board?
You could do it internally, I believe. I don't think that you're not required to by the state just to operate as a not-for-profit. So you're meeting the state guidelines as far as that's concerned.
Right.
But to be charitable, you know, we need to see evidence that you're continuously meeting that charitable benchmark. And so as we went down through the checklist, that was one of the places where we weren't, at least us as staff, weren't definitively able to say, yes, you absolutely meet that, no question about it.
Okay. And I don't remember, and like I said, I didn't do the application, but, and I know the Pine Street deed has a restriction in it, but I don't know that the other three.
There are two others
In the
that have a deed restriction, yes.
Right. So
Yes.
doesn't that help? I mean, we have to comply with that. Doesn't that put further evidence in the fact that's the whole mission?
So it's
We're not trying to house anybody that can go and buy a house for cash.
Completely understand that. So
Yeah.
the deed restriction is restricting the rents to a certain level, but it is not,
Not about
it
their
is not
income.
about their income and whether they qualify
Right.
at rents at that level.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and there's, shall be occupied by households, the aggregate income of all members of which upon initial household occupancy of the unit is less than 80% of the median income of Hillsborough County. So that's where the follow-up comes in, where if someone meets that standard when they move in, and then 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the line, they don't, there's no knowledge of that, there's no verification of that. And Alice had said that verification used to be done on a regular basis for those other buildings, but then had ceased about 10 years ago.
Did she say why? It's okay.
I don't think she did in the email.
Yeah,
I would say we'd certainly be open to doing that again if that helps, because that's the whole intention of this project. We're not,
Yeah.
certainly not expecting, I think people can afford more, they're looking for more, because it's not like an ample amount of space they're getting,
Right.
But I will take that to the board as a suggestion, if that helps.
So that's certainly the recommendation that we've made to the select board, or would make to the select board, is that you grant a pilot agreement for the municipal portion of taxes only on the Pine Street apartments, but then seek to, more information before considering one for the balance of the buildings.
And how soon could we then?
You can enter into a
Amendments.
pilot agreement anytime.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if they
And-
came back next week, had checked with everybody's pay stubs and so forth,
Yeah.
our next meeting,
Yep.
we could fix it right now.
Turn it right around, yep.
That's all Carol saying.
Carol Nelson, yeah, just a couple of points. I thought there was actually a deadline for submitting this information.
There's a deadline for renewing every year. You're required to submit A9s and A12s on an annual basis, and I forget what the deadline is.
Well, and I was just
And then-
going to say
Yeah,
that,
and then
I'm
this-
sorry to interrupt. So for the A9, which kind of functions as the application, there is a due date of April 15th, but they had this in late March. So the original application did come in by the deadline. So how we would work with that is we would, if needed to, abate for anything that had been paid, or would make sure that it was, yeah.
Because that was my next question is, so if they do the income verification for High Street and Shadow Lane, and possibly even Grove Street, even though that Grove Street does not have that deed restriction, but they could still do the income verification for it, would they have to go through this arduous process again? For those
They
three?
they just need to provide that information.
And that's it,
whether
because
it's-
this was a months-long process and very.
Yes, yeah, and they included, so they applied as an organization,
Okay.
they didn't apply per property.
Gotcha.
But in our review of all the documents that were submitted, and it is a lot of work. We asked for a lot of information, and they provided everything that we asked for. In the review of the information, the audited financials for Pine Street stuck out. When we look at that, it was like this very obviously, at least to me, should be considered for a pilot. And if we had audited financials for the remaining 3 buildings, it's very possible that I could have come to that same conclusion. It was just the question of that, and because we didn't have proofs that those were, that
That
everyone.
all the tenants meet the guidelines.
Exactly. So that's why that question still remained.
Okay, thank you. 2 more questions, or 1 comment, 1 question. So every year, the Contoocook Housing Trust wants to apply for a pilot program. Do they have to go through this whole process again?
No.
It was just this initial thing that was really difficult.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, once a pilot has been established, there are some pilots where there's review that's required, like every 3 years or every 5 years. But even though this process, it's arduous to get started, but then is not nearly as complicated going forward.
Right.
So we do ask for the BTLA 9 and A12 every year, but that's state paperwork, so
And
that's
that's all-
required.
Right.
And it's all of 4 pages long. It's not, we're not talking about a particularly long set of forms.
Yeah.
And then just the other comment I had, I'm not sure who asked why they only are asking for this from Peterborough. Was that you, Tyler?
That was me.
Why are they only asking Peterborough? I will tell you that when Stephanie Hurley and I met with Alice and Danica, the 3 of us met with her last fall. That's right, you were there, and Trish, actually, and Wayne Gordon. Alice wasn't aware of the pilot program. We made her aware of it. So she may not have been aware that other towns had it, if they do have it. So that, I can tell you, she was very surprised to learn of it last September.
I have a question, which is, the answer may bother me. So you can go through the process and find out that everybody meets the criteria for their income. And then we sign up for this pilot program, and they're into it. And then next year, someone gets a raise, and do they have to move out of their apartment? I mean, that's ridiculous.
What typically happens, so for instance, Rockbrook, which is, a rent-controlled apartment building. It's a different program, but it's also overseen by HUD. And I happen to live there for 10 years, so I know that, every year you have to provide income verification. And then if your income exceeds a certain level, your rent increases, and that goes on an annual basis until you hit full fair market value for that apartment. And it never exceeds that.
So you could stay, you just
You
end up paying
can't
the full
stay.
market value. And then, so then,
Yep.
when you do move out, then that apartment drops back down to
To whatever that person qualifies for, yeah.
okay.
So go ahead.
Stephanie Hurley. I had the same question you did, and, I'm just learning about affordable apartments and the longevity of the affordability, and if, as the apartment rent goes up, does that affect the tax, the pilot thing? I mean, I just don't know how it works.
No,
But they don't have to kick someone out if they started out
no. not
on the
necessarily.
affordable.
Yeah, so long as they're, that's something that we would have to work through in the details of a pilot agreement. But no, it wouldn't necessarily mean that the tenant gets removed from the apartment. They may be encouraged to find an apartment elsewhere so that someone else can take advantage of the affordable apartment. But that's depends, really depends on the landlords.
So remind us of what the pilot program entails tax-wise and the impact of this on the town.
Sure. Do you want, I
Either of us can.
ran some numbers.
Did you?
so,
Perfect.
Yeah. So the pilot, for anyone who's not familiar, it would exempt the property or organization from taxes, but then payment in lieu of taxes, it's either a fixed amount or, and it would be in this case, calculated by taking the assessed value of the property, dividing that by 1,000, and then multiplying that simply by the municipal portion of the tax rate. So tax bill every year has the school portion, municipal portion, state, and county. So the municipal portion, it varies from year to year, but between 30 and 35%.
Yeah, usually right around 35.
35%. So then it would mean that the tax bill would essentially, they wouldn't get a tax bill, but they would get an invoice that would say, this is your amount for the year, and would be multiplied by taking, again, assessed value divided by 1,000 times purely the municipal rate. So that's how it would impact the organization, and then the town wouldn't be collecting the state, county, and school portion.
From them.
Yes, from
But we
them.
would still need to pay the town's share of those bills, so they would be spread out amongst the rest of the taxpayers.
And looking at all 4 of the buildings, and I've broken them out individually too, but if we were looking at all 4 of the buildings, so if all 4 buildings went to a pilot agreement, the savings, this is using the 2021 tax rate, we don't have the 2022 tax rate, but using the 2021 tax rate, it came out to just over $32,000. So that's $32,000 that the town wouldn't be collecting to go towards taxes. And again, that varies from building to building depending on the assessed value.
So 32,000 would be saved or spent, right?
It would be saved by the trust, but then made up by the other taxpayers, essentially.
Right.
And again, that's 2021 numbers. We don't have the 2022 tax rate yet, so that's an estimate.
And what percentage of the tax is that, that's being saved?
About 45%.
Right.
So that figure was what, for all of the buildings or
So
just one?
that's for all 4.
Okay.
It would be just over 32,000 using the 2021 tax rate.
Okay, so we just needed, what, approve of somebody drafting this agreement?
Well, first you want to decide whether or not you would like to enter into a pilot agreement on all the buildings or a certain building or set of buildings. And then it would just be a matter of us working out the agreement.
Well, all of them. or-
All buildings, yeah.
I would be inclined to take the advice of our administration and do a pilot program with Pine Street property, because all the ducks are in a row on that one. And then have them come back to us with verification that this truly is, these other 3 properties truly are low-income properties. I'm not questioning that, I'd just like to see evidence for it.
Well, what if that were just part of the pilot agreement? That they meet that criteria? And then we don't do it twice?
Well, I'd like to, I think it's probably smart to do individual pilot agreements on each of the properties.
Okay.
In case they sell.
Just exactly, in case there's a transfer or something like that. That way we're not looking at, trying to renegotiate it.
Now, we're not asking you to do a complete but we're just asking you to
Yeah,
provide
I get it.
evidence for income levels and things like that on the other properties.
That's great.
And I'm all for this, believe me, but I think we need to get all our ducks in a row.
Yeah.
Carol again. I do believe that Matt's has been part of the pilot program, and they have multiple locations It's my understanding they only have one agreement.
I'm not entirely sure. I wasn't a party to negotiating that when it was done. That was
The information that I've received from the finance department just lumps mats all together. So, just a
entirely
thought.
possible. I mean, but I believe Matt's submits one complete set of audited financials every year along with their A9 and A12, so, you know, that also makes it a little bit easier. I think it's probably better practice to do it building by building again, just in case there is a transfer of property.
So that would apply to mats possibly then?
If we were to renegotiate that agreement, yes, could.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's graduate it as suggested, grouping the others coming to compliance, so, with some quick checking, and get back to rural properties. So you need a motion specifically?
I'll make a motion that we accept a pilot program for the Pine Street property.
Second.
All those in favor, aye?
And we'll negotiate that and get that back to you.
Right. Yeah, we have to get those other three going. And I have another question. Town own any buildings we could give to the Contoocook Housing Trust?
IDG Lux.
We're lucky, yeah, we're lucky.
Town doesn't
Not
Get that person that owns IDG.
IDG, please.
Okay, I think it cost you more.
Well, thank you to the board, Housing Trust for working on that, and everybody that's involved.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. We appreciate
Thank
it.
you guys for crewing them into the pilot. Good one.
And thank you for all your work, Ellie.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ally, you've been great. Thank you for all your help.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, Danica's here.
Hi, everyone. So Danica Malone, Town Planner. So I'm here to make a recommendation for you guys tonight for whom we'd like to award our social media services contract for the EDA. This past year, the EDA revised their ask in the RFQ and sort of revised what their goal was, which makes it more attainable for whoever the service provider is to actually give us analytics that connects the dots that social media is really doing its purpose. So we did get some good responses. However, whom we're recommending is that the social media services contract goes to Drum. Drum did revamp what they're looking to do on top of what they've done in the past, so they'll continue to do the 3 social media campaigns that they've had. However, they're going to significantly be bolstering their analytics, as well as be doing, well, they gave us 4 different options to start with in terms of how we could track how the social media is really being effective in the community, so that we can come back to you hopefully come budget season and build this into the budget more long term. So we're hoping that you guys will be amenable to this. I'm happy to answer questions about what was provided to us.
And so, just for a recap, for people that haven't been following along, or weren't aware that this was happening, the Economic Development Authority had proposed for town meetings some money to set aside for this contract for social media services, and it's really geared towards advertising the town to places abound.
So it started as something a little different, and that goal was originally back in about 2015, 2016, and it was revised a bit because first of all, we really felt that it needed to be updated. But in doing that update, it made it easier for whomever the service provider was to actually track analytics, which, like I said, connected those dots. And so what it reads now is, the overall goal of the project is to generate awareness of the town and promote it as a place to stay, work, and play to an identified target audience, leading to visitation or relocation to Peterborough. And then we've identified our target audience as well. And so with that, we've also, in our ask through this RFQ, which would eventually become the contract, really driven home that the analytics really do need to connect those dots, and that we need to be seeing that the social media is bringing those people in for visitation or relocation, so that we can show that back to the community that it's been successful.
And we actually had 3 responses, 3 good candidates, yeah.
We did, yeah, absolutely.
Great.
One of the things,
excuse me, I'm sorry.
One of the things that always concerned me is the Peterborough Works website and its effectiveness. Was there a discussion about how to either integrate that into the town website or, I don't see a lot of activity on it right now because there's nothing driving it.
Sure. So it's not been a part of this RFQ. This is purely social media services. But the EDA, I want to say back in April or March maybe, made the decision that this contract would not include the website, purely because it was something that could be done in-house. So we've taken over that role in-house as a cost saving so that the money can be set aside only for the social media services, which the EDA expressed is really what their primary focus is on.
So tell me, the Peterborough Works website, is it active? What's it doing these days?
It is active.
Is it?
Yep.
Carol. So could the social media that is going to be contracted for push people to the website that Bill's
That's
referring
right.
to? Is that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, with Drum, what's changed that they now have this fabulous analytics? Do they have new software? What's different?
It's a mix. It sounds like they have new software, and to be honest, I've not looked through what this new software is. However, using Facebook actually generates their own analytics, and it was a little bit disappointing to see that they've not been giving us those analytics in the past. What we've been receiving was really likes and reactions is when you're scrolling through and you pause on a picture. And though that's great, but it doesn't connect the dots that a business has moved to town. On the other hand, Facebook's analytics will show you where those people live that have paused and looked at the pictures, if they're interacting with it, what's the range, and when you choose to do ad buys, which is something that's built into this, you can choose what those geographic locations are, you can choose the age range, and you can choose other statistics with it to come back for it as well. And so we've asked that be included because it's so much more enhanced and it's free for them to also provide to us. But on top of that, we're also looking at doing one or several different campaigns where we'd be trying to get concrete something, where we'd see someone come into the community and say, we had some other one that came and had dinner at Cooper's Hill because they saw this post on Facebook, because they saw this advertisement about the festival. So that's something else that's been built into it.
So really, the analytics were there from Facebook. They just weren't being pulled and utilized from Drum.
Yeah, and I don't know if maybe they didn't know that they were there. We did have a talk about it. So they agreed that would certainly be something that they'd be providing to us. We know Twitter and Instagram has that as well. Facebook tends to be really robust and will also show you what Instagram and Twitter has also.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Yep.
What else?
Any other questions? No. I move that we accept. Drum is our continuing.
I'll second that. Sure.
All those in favor? Aye.
Would you like to authorize either myself or Danica to sign the contract?
So moved.
So moved, I think Danica could sign. I think Pete in the past had signed the contracts and Cameron is
Yeah.
that'll take something off your table.
One less signature.
Yeah.
All about it.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Have a great
Thank
day.
you, Dan.
You too.
So when I put my phone down, when I'm scrolling Facebook and I'm doing, also making dinner, and it ends on whatever ad comes up, it's sitting for 12 minutes, stirring whatever, they think I'm really engaged in that.
All about it, yeah.
Little do they know you're out walking your dog.
So lesson learned, don't put your phone down. All right, up next, Primex, our
Yep. Cap
trusted,
agreement.
Insurance program.
So Primex is offering us a cap agreement, which essentially will not exactly lock us in, but it'll reduce the amount that our property and liability insurance can increase between now and FY '26. I think this is a good idea. This is essentially based on our very good behavior. We've had very few incidences of property loss or injury, so they're offering this to us. It also provides them a benefit. We won't be going out and looking for other insurance companies during this period of time that we're locked in, so it's kind of a win-win for both of us.
Does this also include success they've had in mitigating lawsuits against the town?
They have actually,
recent years?
they have done a really great job for us, I will say, at representing the town. I've been very pleased with them.
Are there any other alternatives out there?
Yes, yes, there are.
Have we investigated any of them?
We have in the past, but Primex has always been the most cost effective.
Well, they have been good to us lately.
Yeah, they have.
I'll make a motion to accept this 3-year cap program.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, did anybody have any questions about that one? Carol?
Well, I mean, you said it's been a while since you've looked. I'm curious, like a couple years, last year?
We haven't looked, it's 22. I want to say it was 2018, it might have been 2017 was the last time we looked. But they've been, I mean, and I mean seriously, looked and, gotten pricing. They've been really impressive. I also am a member of a listserv of other municipal managers in the state of New Hampshire, and so we are regularly hearing about who's going with who do you like, and time after time it comes back, Primex has been the best. They've been the most cost effective, so again, we've been very happy with their service and the property and liability. Haven't really seen a reason to go out and change it. I mean, their price increases have been pretty minor, so. Been happy with them.
Once you develop a good working relationship, you'd be loath to drop it.
Which bond are we?
Who seconded, may I ask?
Bill. Yeah, Bill did. That helps.
First bill, second.
So the Adams Pool bond, we're looking to potentially pay off early.
I don't want to.
Okay, well, that's fine.
Next on the agenda.
Drain it.
As you know, earlier this year, we received $92,000 from the 1833 Society towards the library bond. So that saves up some money. We've done some refinancing this year. We are tapping into some trust fund money that we already had squirreled away to go towards existing bond payments. All in all, we're saving $442,000 out of the debt service line in this year's budget, which is absolutely fantastic. We would like to turn that around and use it to pay off the Adams Pool bond, which is the only bond that you have that can be paid off early right now. We've tackled everything else that we possibly could. The total payoff for the Adams Pool bond is $253,000. This will still leave about $189,000 in unspent funds that can go towards whatever we need over the balance of the year. These are general funds, so they could help with, for instance, offsetting the shocking increase in diesel fuel prices and that sort of thing, depending on what that looks like as we go into winter. So we're not, Lily's recommendation is really not to spend all of that money, but to spend a pretty good chunk of it, and that would save us $13,061 in interest over the next 2 years.
Does that include that recreational trust fund?
Nope, this is general fund, this is a general fund bond.
Sounds very reasonable to me.
I'll make a motion. Pay those bonds off.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, did anybody want
Questions?
to
No?
stop us?
Anybody want to grab that loan out?
All right, the end of the night saga. Tell us about this memorandum of understanding with the Recreation Committee. Who's gonna bring us up to speed on?
It's been in place.
Well, first of all, Kate, congratulations on being chairman of the Recreation Committee now. Now, that happened in June, but
Well, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a while.
but we haven't seen you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
You didn't see her at the parade and
No.
fireworks for that?
So the memorandum of understanding goes back quite a ways. I want to say the current version, such as it is, was entered into 2002.
Correct.
Yeah. And it has been sat there unrevised since then. It is an incredibly cumbersome document to try to work through, administratively speaking. I don't think anyone's really ever been a big fan of it, whether it was the Recreation Committee, the Rec Director, or the Board of Selectmen. But no one's ever really taken to do anything with it until.
What's the purpose of the MOU?
We're honestly
Nobody knows.
not quite sure. It's a really good question.
It's redundant.
I believe it probably dates back to, this is just kind of how we used to do things. The Recreation Committee, for those who don't know, was established in the 1920s when the land was donated for the playground by Mrs. Adams. And originally, the Recreation Committee, and has been ever since, is an elected board. They were originally independent to a large extent from the Board of Selectmen, but with changes over the years to how governments function in the state of New Hampshire, various state laws and financing rules and what have you, they've been more brought into line. Even though in Peterborough we still elect them, generally speaking, they're appointed bodies from now on. And so when they were originally established, they had oversight over the staff at the Recreation Department. But again, as years have gone by, things have kind of moved towards staff underneath the Board of Selectmen, just like every other staff person in town, with the exception of the library director, but that's a whole nother story. So
Will this eliminate elected recreation?
it will not do that. No, that would, I'm not entirely sure what steps would have to go through. That may be a vote of town meeting to change that. I could certainly research that if you like. But eliminating this and the Recreation Committee, I don't want to, jump on your thunder, but has really done a lot on the administrative side to really smooth things over as far as just who manages what, particularly when it comes to the Recreation Director, reviewing their performance, who do they actually report to. This really clears a lot of things up. Up until this point, the Recreation Director has served two masters. They've reported to the town administrator, but they've also reported to the Recreation Committee, which I think if anyone spent a couple minutes imagining that would realize that's an untenable and unfair situation to put anybody in.
So how would the circumstances change? Would Lisa then report to you?
Just
directly, and
directly.
then- So what's the role of the board then?
That's not, our role should not be to evaluate a town
Staff.
employee. So there's two sort of instruments working. The MOU is like an overlay on the bylaws. The
Right.
bylaws are the really governing document that governs our work. And those also were not, I've got those in a separate little sheet, but they're pretty old too.
Yeah.
And so that's what drove this. As I said, we're supposed to have been revising the bylaws every 2 years, and I think they were 20.
They're probably 20 years
too. Yeah.
as well.
six.
So we said it's time to do that, so time to do the bylaws, and as we did the bylaws and the memorandum of understanding, we said, it was in our minutes that somebody, as we were trying to sort of do both, said, the memorandum of understanding should be scrapped, basically because the bylaws should do everything that the memorandum of understanding
I remember Andrew
talks
made that
about.
comment.
Sorry?
It was Andrew who made that comment.
No, it was, Andrew Osterman. Yeah, sorry, I thought you meant other Andrew, right. It was Andrew Osterman who said that, a few months ago.
Right.
So then we did vote at our PRC meeting to do just that, knowing that then, because it's a two-way signatory, that even though we voted that you also would have to vote the same thing to us. I think it's to withdraw from the memorandum of understanding or to scrap it, basically. And yeah, when you look at it, it's an artifact of a certain time, and which is no longer. So, it doesn't mean that there couldn't, at some point, be a decision, I think it was initiated in 2002 by the Recreation Committee, not the board, but I suppose at any time, somebody could say, well, we do want a memorandum of understanding, the bylaws are not sufficient, and then they could start all over. But our current membership sees no benefit to it.
Did it by any chance predict the popularity of pickleball?
It was not
Nothing in
it was
there,
not
all
in the
right.
memorandum of understanding.
Scrap it.
Nobody could have seen that coming.
There are certain things that are in there that are like, fine. Most importantly, it's in the best interest of the town of Peterborough that the Board of Selectmen and the select board, and the Peterborough Recreation Committee work together. And so, yes, okay. And then we agree the selectmen and town administrator are responsible for all budgetary policy and personnel matters of the town. I mean, that's codicil number 1. 2, we're committed to abiding by and upholding all the rules and regulations as outlined by the Peterborough Town Policy Manual. All that's in our bylaws, you know, there's no need for
And
some
that's
of the
also
stuff.
doesn't require restating, because that's just how town
It's
government
just how it
runs at this
is.
point, yeah.
So the redundancy struck us as unnecessary.
At any rate.
And anyway,
Would anyone want to object? I move that we scrap the MOU.
Second.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, thanks, Kate, thanks everybody everybody that volunteers over there.
yeah.
And Lisa, yeah, running a great show. Excellent, anything else?
Yeah, I got a question. When are they gonna finish that damn bridge?
Yeah.
Which one? I know the one on 101,
I spoke with someone from Hoyleton the other day, when they were working on the sidewalk and getting ready to put the crosswalks in and that final pavement. And she said, it'll be October. Yeah. Yeah. So we're getting closer every day. And then, and she's like, we can't wait either.
Everyone's done.
Yeah, and the best thing is we moved past the earth rattling, house shaking portion of it.
Well, for a time there, it was worse than it ever was.
Yeah, I didn't think a brick house could shake like that. Anybody else have anything?
Was it two-way all day today?
Yep. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, it's raining, so
You
you
can't
can't
pour
pour
it.
concrete, yeah. Well, you can, just
Yeah,
never
it
comes out
doesn't-
good.
doesn't come out. I do notice that they didn't pour that sidewalk on the library side of the bridge, so that's a good step.
Bylaws were 2007.
7, that was the last update.
5 years later.
Oh, my goodness.
15 years.
Okay, well,
I move that we adjourn this fine meeting.
second.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you.